Hello, my friends, and welcome to FISHTORY. I'm Alexander Williamson, your host as always, and I am coming to you from Seattle on a crisp Pacific Northwest morning where we are about to check out an awesome installment of Tropical Fish Hobbyist, an over 60-year-old magazine that we have been gifted to the channel by my friend Doug Sharp, a viewer. So major thank you to Doug Sharp, who collected this himself in 1964 as a kid when Martin Luther King Jr. was winning the Nobel Prize and the Ford Mustang rolled out its first model at the New York World's Fair. An incredible thing to think about 60 years ago what fish keeping was like, but we're about to check out the technology, the fish that were popular, the fish that we've forgotten since then, and what people were thinking as common sense and as scientific cutting-edge theories all the way back 60 years ago. So let's jump in. All right, my friends, we have got the turkey baster of destiny to help us today, and we're looking through March 1964 here. Let's jump in. Color plates, guys. So this is the way we're going to check this out. If you want to zoom in, you can on your own. But the issue is that copyright and high quality scans may be at odds with one another. But basically all these early magazines, they open with a corrections. They also have a contents page, and then they also have a letter from the editor that's kind of a quirky little saying or something about the article. But mostly what we're looking through in the interest of time are these ads and various articles and which fish we're seeing. So here you can see how faded a yellow betta was. And so this is the first iteration of the cellophane betta. So you can see here in the article they go on and they talk about the bluish hues in the fins. Really, really fascinating. Before this, you would believe if you read the article that did not happen, and that these are not albino. These are a platinum breed if you look at the eyes. And it also says as much if you get into the article as well. And these were being bred in Germany. Yeah, I guess that was what was cool 60 years ago. So there's a lot of ads next to these articles in these old magazines, which I find pretty interesting. See what an ozonizer is, you know, and it's got a rundown. A lot of time they have like a whole big article about it. But what it claims is that, it releases ozone and prevents epidemics of ick, velvet, and other disease. Cures rapidly, completely, without a need for heat, chemical, or drugs, making bacterial, turbid water sparkly clear, and fresh or marine aquariums can handle it. It sterilizes plants, live food, and tanks. So it's just kind of interesting. It's a small, noiseless, vibration-free apparatus, electrically generating reactive form of oxygen known as ozone. But the article about those bettas, what's interesting is they're talking about, and they know at the time, how did this yellow tone come to be? All bettas imported so far have had red basic color in them, brought out by red color cells, erythrophores. The red color can appear in all shades light to dark. The occasional dark color is dependent on the presence of black or yellow cells, melanophores and xanthophores. The more black color cells are mixed with the red. The darker red appears with it. With fewer black cells, there are lighter red colors. Black and yellow are the only true color. So the red, the black, and the yellow are the only true color cells. The rest are due to little crystals, which, like prisms under the skin cells of the fish, are known as iridocytes. So that's what's giving that blue ghostly hue to the tail, which is the true cellophane name. And we've talked all about that on how fish see and how fish are, the pigment of fish and where fish get their color from. So pretty interesting. Also here we've got an article by Harold Schultz, which is pretty cool. He's someone named in a lot of our fish that we have in the hobby today. He's got, I think, 18 fish or something named after him. But you'll see these big names, Axelrod, Schultz, Innes, things like that. But he's writing from down in Sao Paulo, and here he is talking about one of the beautiful new fishes that, he's excited about, which is the diamond tetra. And this is a new color form of it known as the black jacket. And it's basically the diamond tetra with a black coloration. Now, we know that the diamond tetra is actually indigenous to Lake Valencia in Venezuela, and that a lot of people took them away from there from the 40s, 50s, and 60s and tried to introduce them to other areas in the Amazonian rainforest and Orinoco rainforest, and that allowed these fish to survive once they later got temporarily exterminated by nature with a giant mudslide. But what's interesting is as early as in the 1960s, they're seeing color morphs of the darker form, which is a really cool fish that's not really in the hobby from what I've seen. Now, this also has a Leprinus fasciatus fish that it talks about a little bit. It talks about tiger barbs, and it talks about 2 new tetras from the lower Amazon basin in this article. What I find interesting is in this early articles, they actually give real details from the taxonomy of the time. So they've got the actual write-up and discussion from Ingemann, who's a husband and wife team, but in 1917 is when they first figured out this genus, and then later on you can see they're talking about like the distance between the anal fin, the depth of the eye, and the maxillary jaws, and comparing it to other fish. It's very, very detailed stuff that nowadays we don't really include in most of our articles. Also, Wardley's imported super flakes. The proof is in the eating. So some of these ads and the style of graphic design is kind of fun too. But that's a double page spread. Here you can see there's another new fish. This coffee bean tetra was just being found and introduced. Now this doesn't do it any justice, but the Hyphosobricon takase, or takase, I don't know how we're supposed to say this, the takase. Anyways, it's got a nice little write-up about it, and you know, it has a list of other fish that it would go well with, as well as some of the other fish that they've been looking at in the area and naming. Also, you can see here the pumps of the day, which is cool. The technology of the day, 1964. They've got the Dynamaster Supreme. They've also got Supreme air pumps is the line here, and this is, you know, from everything from your whole fish room down to just a tank or two. And they're pretty cool. In 1/70th of a horsepower is how big the motors are here. Most of them, some of them 120th of a horsepower. They've also got lights. So people were growing plants in tanks back then. Planted tanks are nothing new. Aquascaping is nothing new. Dutch gardening is nothing new. And here's an article talking about filters. Pretty much the way we understand it now was figured out by this point. Now, also we see that they've got more food ads, more stuff about filters, and here they've got everything from different filter styles, and it's basically a filter ad, but they've got 4 well-known under gravel filters. Oh, Verse, this hang-off-the-back filter, and it says, does it stunt plant growth? It says all the under gravel filters do. Acidify water. It says all the under gravel filters do. Water discolor. All the under gravel filters do. So it's interesting. Don't know if that's correct. It says circulating water through a deep bed of activated carbon with the same principle used to provide only high quality drinking water. So basically it's one of the first charcoal layered filters with the biological filter and the cloth filter all built in one. And here's some heavy duty air pumps. Yet again, more ads. All right, so as we continue on here, I want to just kind of flip through quicker, but they do spotlights on different fish keepers, which I think is pretty cool. This one has a thing talking about this guy who has 100,000 tank-raised fish in 500 aquariums underground in his basement. Pretty wild. So people were definitely into fish hardcore for a long time. Also, if you're into these ads, you can freeze and look at them later. Also, there are a lot of like people writing about problems or like great products, the magazine making comments of things when the magazine doesn't know for sure, like, is this fish actually found this place or that place? Well, a lot of times professors or fish hobbyists from around the world would write in. And back before the internet, you know, this was one of the ways to do so. But what's really wild is to see this old betta setup for breeding. And all the jars are at a 30-degree angle, it notes. You can see the rows of the jars. This guy is definitely into betta breeding. And really, really wild just to imagine all that back in the day. There's also stuff about, you know, the live feeding and what he's using. Then they're always selling the different almanacs and fish ID guides and atlases that we probably all know and love. If you've been in the hobby at all for, you know, 20, 30 years, you know the names like the Innis book and Herbert Axelrod, the Atlas of Aquarium Fishes, things like that. Now, they also have these guides, and these guides were really common. If you are not of that generation, you may not know this. I'm probably right at the edge of people who remember this, which is when you could actually get books on different animals, but you had to order from this kind of guide to get these really specialized things. And sometimes in magazines, you would have either in club newsletters or actual magazines like this, you would find very interesting, live cultures. You'd find somebody with this or that fish, someone with something really rare or something they personally collected, or a new species that's unknown to science. A lot of that stuff was available in the back of these things, and there were a lot of times there were order guides or ads for companies, but there were also just individuals on lists sometimes that were very similar to this one right here, where you kind of have an index of books. Well, they would do this with fish as well, and especially early on, people would list, I am breeding the following species, and have them ready, and at any given time they would have those, which I think is super interesting. Now, also, they have the same problems we've always had, which is, planaria being a problem, which is interesting. If you look here, you can see that they've got mail call and answering a question, but there's a long write-up here, and we can go over these on their own if you're interested sometime, but we'll save all these questions for another time because I think it's interesting. Also, you can see the plants and even root tabs, nothing that you may think of as new generation, or the fact that it's only more recent with aquascaping and stuff. All this stuff has been around quite a while. Most of what we think of, even as new wave aquarium stuff, has been around a while. But what hasn't is a lot of species, and things like color morphs and things like Neocaridina shrimp, for instance, were not part of the hobby whatsoever. And here you can see they've got a nice planted aquarium with, really nice rocks and plants and gravel substrate, and also looks like probably a canister underneath. But it's just cool to see the old pictures, and yet again, just more ads for air pumps. There's and Tops, the aristocrat of tropical fish food. So I just think that's really interesting, what is here and what you can read about. Now, also the coffee bean tetra they talked about earlier, they have a full write-up on it. And San Francisco frozen brine shrimp used to have a different logo, but again, you can get this, you could order it at the time packed with dry ice, and I think it's just pretty interesting. And the different fisheries, there were a lot of importers in New York and LA, Chicago, Columbus, Cincinnati, St. Louis, and you can see them in here. Now, here's the color picture of the coffee bean tetra, a little bit better seen here, which is kind of interesting. And then again, look at these details that you don't see that anymore in write-ups, where they have literally all the info for the write-up of a new species, down to how to measure things and the distance from the eye to the top of the head, or from the pupil to the edge of the eye. I mean, it's really interesting how detailed they get. And they do that with all the fish that they discuss, which is kind of cool. And again, here's another product, full color plate ad, where a lot of these companies are gone or have been bought out or conglomerated, but here you've got gravel vac. I just think that's kind of cool. And only $3.98 retail, and it kind of gives you an idea of prices, but when you look through old publications like this, you'll definitely see the prices of that stuff. Yeah, see, here's St. Louis, here's Florida, again, Tampa, aquarium shops, pet shops, and wholesale. This is plants, again, Everglades plants and fish. There used to be 700 farmers and growers of fish or plants in Florida that were just for ornamental stuff, and now it's less than 200. Look at this too, all the colorful gravel and dyed gravel and sand. Kind of interesting. Longest lasting, so it used to wear off color-wise, which is interesting. But also frozen brine shrimp, and if this makes your mouth water, you're a tropical fish. Think that's funny. That's actually a pretty scary sea monkey, brine shrimp. But then in the back, they've got the binder that this is actually in that Doug Sharp bought. You can order specific issues and stuff, which is cool. And then you can get a discount off. Anyways, this is the next issue, but due to time, we'll save this and we will go over this one with Don Knotts and talking about him keeping fish. But I've got another 12 issues of this, and if you have any interest in sharing any content like this that you may have, magazines, books, older stuff, anything older than the 70s, I'm happy to share it on the channel, and we'll kind of just let it, you know, slip out into the hobby over time as allowed. But look, the purple striped gudgeon, that's still a great fish. And a lot of these are brand new when they're talking about them in here. And it's just really interesting because this actual edition is one where they were definitely promoting stuff about the movie that was coming out at the time with Don Knotts. So this was really one of the heights of fish keeping, if you look at it. The Incredible Mr. Limpet. This is, you know, when film was tied in, and they actually had Don Knotts talking about his actual home aquarium and stuff in here, which I think is interesting. Also, tank dividers. I mean, stuff that you know and love today, it was around then. So, all right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. But if you would like to know more about these tropical fish hobbyist magazines, I've got the full year of 1964 here, the whole bunch of them. I've read through them all, love them. And I'd love to share more with you. Thank you so much to people who are subscribed, people who send in stuff like this. It will be documented and shared, our videos. So I really do truly appreciate it. And I hope we never lose our love for this kind of stuff. Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you next time on FISHTORY.